literally every fucking thing into a competition, to the point where it was like, he walked in one day and I was watching TV and I was changing channels, and he goes, "What you doing?" And I was like, "I'm just changing channels, man. I'm just trying to find a TV show. Think you can change faster than me?" Like, I don't fucking know, man. I'm just trying to not into this Family Guy rerun, just looking for something else on TV. Oh, what, you don't want to do it? You scared pussy? He always go to that. He'd be like, "You scared pussy?" And I'd be like, "What? What?" If I was playing soccer and you came over and said that, I'd say, "Sure, let's do this, but I'm just trying to change channels." Like, how is this a competition to you? But he was like that. And so one of our roommates was a boxer, and he had brought home some equipment. The sparring pads, the big flat pads, and he was calling out numbers and he was having me do it. And Brian fucking walks in and goes, "What you guys doing?" And Jason's like, "Oh yeah, I'm teaching Alex how to box." And man, he's got a hard right. He's like, "Oh, you think your right's harder than mine?" And I said, "No, I literally never said that, Brian. I literally never." You just walked in. When would I have said that? And then he was like, "Well, let me try. Let me see your right. Let me see your right." And I'm like, I don't really think this is a good idea. And so Jason showed him how to like call out numbers, which is like the punch that you're basically throwing, right or left, like jab or cross or uppercut. And he called out a bunch, and I was like pretty pissed. So I was throwing it out, and then he had one of his pads slanted, which you're never supposed to do because the glove will just slide straight off.
Right.
And Jason had told him that, and he called a number, and I threw a hard right cross, and his thing was in. And the second I felt the slip, I immediately pulled back as hard as I could, but I still clocked him. And he just instinctively turned back, kind of like that moment in Snatch where Brad Pitt comes out of the water and just comes up and counters, and it hits me with the plastic rim, and I turn my head right into the corner of a door. And just blood fucking, we filled up 2 towels worth of blood, no exaggeration. And our RA was freaking the fuck out. And the entire time I was like, "Is my hair going to grow back there? Is my hair going to go back there? Because that's right on the hairline. That's right on the hairline."
Yeah, that sounds like you, Alex, worrying more about the aesthetics than the fact that you're bleeding out.
I knew I was fine. I didn't feel concussed. All right.
Hey, Colin.
What number is this?
This is 113.
All right, we got to charge into this because I'm worried that I'm hearing Luke stirring.
That's fine.
Colin, you ready? Colin, you ready? Colin, you ready?
He's probably muted.
Colin, you ready?
Colin, we can't hear you. If you are here, which you seem to be.
Yeah, Colin, speak to us.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. It's a victory.
Oh, okay. That was
for modern technology.
Hey, Dave, I'm so glad you heard my hairline story. I do have one. I do have a pretty bad scar there, and the hair is not growing back as regularly. This will not make the podcast, by the way.
No, it won't. Well, I collect outtakes. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, one day, dude.
Alex, you there's only like 2 countries where people are tall enough to notice that. And
yeah, true. I love when people ask me like how tall someone else is, and I'm like, why would I know that? They're shorter than me. That's literally all I need to know. All right, 113.
113.
Let's do this and take a sip out of my Kona longboard.
You sound like one of the designers from DICE who has been caught saying, if you're not 2.0, you're just 1.0.
Yeah, that's how it works, my friend. You're basic. All right.
Well, I mean, of course, they talk in meters over here, so if you need Ben to explain that to you, just, give it
I will after the podcast.
Oh, God.
All right, 113. Let's do this. Hello, and welcome to Circling the Cup, San Jose Sharks podcast, episode number 113. And guys, this is the week that we are going to be answering a piece of viewer mail, which I think right now is incredibly, incredibly common amongst the fan base. But before we do, I'm Alex, as you can probably tell by my over enthusiasm. Here with me, as always, is Ben. What's up, Ben?
I'm not as enthusiastic as Alex.
You never will be. And of course, Colin, who there's no way he's as enthusiastic as I am because it's early morning there in Sweden. How you doing, Colin?
Didn't we answer a write-in question on the last podcast?
I think this is 3 weeks in a row, actually.
You know what, though?
Yeah.
People keep writing us. And it's great
Hey.
because the Sharks kind of keep going through the same cycle, so it actually gives us something to focus on.
So people I've worked with have heard me say this, and I would like the Sharks to also hear me say this. I would like to be wrong.
Yeah, well, I don't think the Sharks are listening, Colin. It's pretty clear that they're not listening to the coaching staff. Oh, low
I-
blow. Oh, didn't see that one
I
coming.
think DeBoer listens. I think on road trips, I think DeBoer tunes in.
Well, I'll tell you what,
Somebody poked him with it.
he called a vital and successful timeout this week, so he must have listened to the years when we were podcasting with Todd. That was my biggest complaint.
Oh,
Well, let's
why talk
he
about
did
that?
outlast Todd this year, so let's give him some credit.
let's get down to this. You know, Ben, I was gonna intro this, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say pickles and let you run. Go.
Oh Jesus!
Oh, come on! No, the guy wrote a big long question. Just saying.
Well, I'll read the
Yeah,
question.
no, he's gonna read the
He's just
question.
throwing it to me.
Oh, good Lord. Okay.
Okay.
I'm basically telling people I can't read.
Okay. So
wait, real quick. I love the question, and I love explanations of things.
I think you're prefacing this too much.
Yeah, way too much.
Okay, yeah. Let Ben read it. And I think,
so if you are unfortunate enough to follow me on Twitter,
what? No, that's a good thing.
And by him on Twitter, he really means the Circling the Cup,
the podcast. Yeah,
let's not make any mistake about who that is.
That's right. It's me. Alex just posts shirtless Jumbo pictures. That's all he does.
That's all Jumbo does. He's never wearing a shirt.
Anyway, you know that I've been. As we've gone through the first third of, or almost to the halfway point of the season,
we passed the halfway?
We've been upset with some of the things that are going on with, decisions of who's paired with who and blah, blah, blah. And, one of the things that we've been upset with is, Marc-Edouard Vlasic having to carry the corpse of Justin Braun up and down the ice every game, more or less. And so our perspective on, the whole sort of why isn't Vlasic kind of performing the way he has in the past is more from our perspective a question of why is Peter DeBoer so stupid as to keep playing Vlasic with somebody not named Erik Karlsson. That's not the way everybody in the fan base feels. There seems to be this narrative in the fan base that Marc-Edouard Vlasic is a big petulant baby, and also that he himself is the problem on the ice right now. And that is largely a narrative, I think, that being driven by a guy that Vlasic doesn't treat very well in our local media. But that leads to a question we got from our fan base this week. So we talked last week a little bit about what was going on when goaltending, and I made the supposition at the end of last week's podcast that Mark, despite a bad game, Jones had been playing relatively well compared to the previous weeks, which kind of led to this question, which is who's to blame for where the Sharks are right now? Who's to blame for what's going on with the Sharks defense? Can I
interject with one quick thing?
Yeah, I was just going to read.
You know who's not to blame? And this is and it's a big deal to say this because not a lot of teams can say this. Doug Wilson.
Right. Not the GM's fault.
And that's a big thing.
The part of this question, plays to something about, Vlasic's position, right? Which is that he's an older defenseman with a very long contract. So the midpoint of the question
will be Doug Wilson's problem.
is the really important part, which is Vlasic has a massive contract. The Sharks brought in Erik Karlsson. So do we think that there is something in particular going on with Vlasic and his, what our reader says is a tremendous drop-off this year? I would contend is not tremendous because Vlasic was dropping off a bit last year as well. But the question is Vlasic complacent? Is it age decline? Is there a riff in the locker room between him and Karlsson? So, as I kind of got into this with folks on Twitter this week, I maintain that the main issue is that, yes, Vlasic has begun an age decline. But largely the problem on the ice is something we've said a lot this year, which is that Vlasic and Braun are not a shutdown pair anymore, but they're being deployed like one.
Sure.
And when you do that, bad things are going to happen. But what do you guys
I'll jump in on that point real quick. On the shutdown pairing, I feel like you have more to say, so let me just add on the shutdown pairing. They pass the eye test at weird times on the shutdown look. and it's easy. I can see it being really easy for people to think they are still what they were.
Well, it's hard to it's hard to let go of, you know, an image that you have in your head of a player in general, right? I mean, you still have people who look at Joe Thornton and think that he's Joe Thornton when he was traded over. Now, obviously, he's not, and that's okay. He shouldn't be. He's like 20 years older than that guy.
And
Not quite, but you know, like it's tough to release that. And just to say, Colin, to that, to be fair, I still love Jeff Friesen. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where you latch on to a player and you latch on.
Oh my God, yeah, that name. So I'm actually surprised Ben stopped. I felt like he was
So I have said my perspective this year I have seen Vlasic give up on a couple of plays at different times, but that shit happens to everybody, right? Yeah. That's why the eye test is bad, because when you see that a couple of times and you are convinced, or you've been convinced, that the problem is Vlasic is a petulant, whiny baby who is somehow upset that he's now the third best defenseman on the team, where he was. Wow. You know, here's where I think the narrative falls apart. Right, the narrative supposes that Vlasic was just cruising along, doing great, being amazing, the last 3 years. And Karlsson shows up and Vlasic is suddenly sad, right? But we know that Vlasic has been second fiddle on this defense from a public perspective for 3 years.
Dude.
Or more, right? Because Burns gets all of the attention. Now, that's not to say, in my opinion, that Vlasic is the second best defender on this team, or has been over that time. If you go back to the Cup, the Cup final run, Vlasic was the best defender on the team, whatever we think of Burns, right? Best overall package. But two things. First, Vlasic's decline has been in progress for more than just this year. Second, are we really going to pretend that he wasn't, if he's upset about Karlsson, he wouldn't have been upset about Burns already? Like, it's that narrative just doesn't fucking make sense.
Yeah.
Period.
Okay. So yeah, like Alice and I both sort of exclaimed at, Vlasic had a golden period of maybe 2 seasons where he was like the golden boy of defense for the Sharks.
I don't even think he had that, man, because even when you would boil around, Vlasic to me has always been the guy that feels like most of the league and most of the public outside of the San Jose Sharks fan base has kind of ignored, despite how good he's been. And that's why he's been so sneakily good as the shutdown guy, because he's not in a lot of national conversations.
Well, yeah, because, and you know, he's that player that shows up, does his job almost perfectly,
quietly,
and never talks about it. Right. Like he shows up, never talks, like, you know, says, "Hey Bill, what's up?" Goes out, you know, hammers his nails, goes home, does that every day for, you know, 10 seasons plus. And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, there's Vlasic stopping a play. That's what he does. No big deal." And it's like, you don't understand. He does that every single play. The other teams have spent games just waiting for him to be off the ice. And next to him, Braun had speed and the awareness to basically follow what Vlasic was doing, you know, be his wingman. And so they were amazing, and nobody cared, because it was like, oh, that pair's on the ice. The other team is shut down. Yeah. We got a little bit of commentary during the Stanley Cup run where they're just like, why aren't the other forwards scoring on the Sharks? Must be Vlasic. But, you know, he hasn't. They were talking about Burns's 1,000th game. And I'm sitting there thinking, and, you know, Vlasic's been step for step and nothing. And this guy is the defender every forward in the league hates playing against. So,
or he was, more to the point, right?
Yeah, he took the back injury or the shoulder injury, right?
I think he just, guys, I mean, he's old.
Yeah,
sure. But I'm saying, okay, go, Alex.
Like, one thing I want to point out, right? Because this has come up a lot, is people see him in that Ovi slot taking a shot, and they look at Karlsson and they look at Burns and they go, well, is Vlasic just jealous? And let me tell you something. Do you know why he's in the slot there? It's because the Boar's putting him there.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
There.
Well,
and that's the problem. It's not that Vlasic is trying to come up and do too much in that scenario. It's
Right.
that the system that he is in right now and the way he's being deployed, the coaches are asking him to do that. And the problem with that is not his skill set. It never has been. It's not going to be. If you were to, years ago, have slot, let's say Braun, when Braun had more of a shot there, that at least would have made some logical sense. I wouldn't have done it, but I would have understood it. But Vlasic shouldn't be there. And when you put Vlasic in situations where he's not playing to his skill level and he's older, and yes, he is declining, what do you realistically expect is going to happen? He's not just going to magically blossom because you've moved him into a position that he wasn't familiar with playing in the first place. And that's what gets me. And it's the same thing that you see, you see people when they talk about Burns all the time. Throw Burns here, throw Burns there, throw Burns here, throw Burns here. Look, like if you've ever played hockey, those positions and those roles are different. They require different sets of skills. Yes, some players can cross over, but no, you can't just slot anyone wherever you want and expect them to succeed wildly. Maybe you get lucky, like when we threw Burns up into power forward, which, again, he was a forward at one point in his career. So it's not like he didn't have an understanding of how to play it, but you can't just throw any defenseman in that position and have them succeed. And it's not going to happen here. So the expectation needs to be put in check, I think, when it comes to Vlasic, as far as, look, he is having a down year. Is he complacent? I don't know. I don't really think that
I don't think so.
To be perfectly honest with most professional players. I think the larger reality is he's having an off year for various reasons. It's okay. That'll happen. Jones is having an off year too. Don't know what to tell you.
I guess here's what I would say about that, right? Like I think on this podcast, we're all very happy early in the year when Vlasic was paired with Karlsson.
Oh God,
right?
yes.
I mean, that pair was functioning in every way except to score goals. And then DeBoer got frustrated that it wasn't scoring goals and split up Vlasic and Karlsson.
It's your defense. Their job is not to score goals.
Well, yeah, I agree. But I think there's an expectation in our sort of overall organization, plus probably in the fan base, that if you've got Erik Karlsson, that guy needs to be putting up points, right? Whether it's goals or assists or what have you. And they weren't coming really in the season. And that's bad luck, I think, more than anything, right? Given the way that pairing was doing together.
Whoa. Let's not skip an opportunity to throw some more poop into our favorite bucket. I mean, it is an all-star, like, team impacting player coming into an already, like, packed roster, with no game plan to adapt into. So you have to sort of
no training
freeform it. And my God, and no training camp. And he has to basically just do hot jazz out there on the ice. And and people are surprised it's just not instant classic.
Right.
Well, I think it's a situation where when you pick up a player like him, he's an offensive. Here's what I think the problem is, personally, with situation like Karlsson's situation at the beginning of the season. People hear offensive defenseman, and they automatically think that means that player needs to be the best damn defenseman and the best forward on the team. Because when you find those players, they are treated as a premium. The problem is, take Burns, for example. If you talk to half of the league, or half the people who follow hockey, they think Burns is one of the best defenders in the league. I would argue he puts up a shitload of points, but that is not what a defender. That doesn't mean he's the best defenseman. Now, I'm not saying he's a shit defenseman either. Right. He has really bad lapses, but the thing is that the second that he's put into that dual position, that's where the expectations go out of whack.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of calling that position defenseman in the first place. I really, honestly, in the modern NHL, wish that we could get away from that idea that defensemen are. Look, first of all, everybody has to defend, right? Yes. Second of all, what is the goal in the modern NHL of a defenseman? It's to remove the puck from the other team and then move the puck out of the defensive zone. Really, right? And that Vlasic-Karlsson pairing was actually excellent at that because Vlasic could do the things he's always done well, which is taking the puck away, denying good shots, due to his positioning and stick work, etc., and then get the puck over to Karlsson and get the puck out. right? The problem with where Vlasic is right now is that he is paired with another 31-year-old defenseman, both of whom have slowed down and are not able to get to places they used to get, right? They're still excellent with their sticks. They're still excellent positionally, but they can't get to those positions as quickly as they could. And now, as Colin, you said, Braun was good in terms of moving prior, but he's not anymore, right? So there's nobody on that pairing to get the puck out of the zone, right now. And that means that pairing gets stuck in the zone. And also DeBoer is putting those guys against the strongest lines, and they're just getting buried.
Yes.
So it's just fatally flawed.
Yes.
But of course it's Vlasic's fault and he's lazy.
Well, yeah. And my question about Vlasic's injury was more, and I forget if it's shoulder or back, but that to me is where he had to change his game. That's where he had to remove like the hard physical play and really focus on positioning and stick work. And we saw him make that transition. I believe we were even talking about it. And we're watching Thornton make that same transition right now. And I feel Thornton's having a bit harder time with it, but it's players, smart players, like really great players, will recognize when their bodies change in a way that forces them to change the way they approach the game. And Vlasic's done that. And part of that change means he cannot cover for somebody.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and look, here's the thing, right? In the end, I think we're all saying the same thing, which is basically that the issue that this team has right now is not Vlasic. It's not a single player in general. It is the larger strategy of how these players are being used based off of where they either are in their career, where they are within the chemistry of the makeup of the team, or where they are any given week. And that is where you're going to see players who are not performing, who are consistently put in a position where they're not going to perform, or who are not given, breaks if they need it. We talked about this last week as far as, Jones is up and down play. And he's a goalie, so it's not like they can misuse him all that much, right? He's pretty much, you're not going to slot him in the
forward. He can by playing him in back-to-backs when he shouldn't.
Right, but that's the thing, right? And so when if you want to point fingers right now, if you're in the fan base and you're frustrated, and you want to point fingers, I think you need to be very careful, one, about listening to our current announcing team, who, by the way, I love and I respect all those guys. But right now, there's a level of homerism that is very confusing if you don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah. Okay, wait. No, because this is a topic I want to get in on.
What you need to do is you need to take a step back and you need to look at this system. This system right now, and the way the players are fitting into it is the problem, period. That problem is not going to magically be fixed, period. It's not a matter of if Jones magically plays well, the Sharks are in heaven. I mean, yes, they'll probably do better. Same goes with Vlasic. But in the end, what is going to bite this team in the ass, if it hasn't already, or at least it consistently seems to be, is the coaching right now. That is what it is. And you can't walk away from this week in particular and deny it.
So, okay, there's one other thing I want to mention about Vlasic, and I think this is one of the biggest driving factors to the bad parts of his play we're seeing. He has no Norris Trophy. And he has no Norris Trophy because he does not score goals as a defenseman. Because ever since Paul Coffey, every defender has to be Paul Coffey. And Alex, and I don't remember if he pointed this out on podcast or just in our chat, but Alex pointed out an interesting thing about Vlasic's equipment that very, very specifically means he shouldn't be shooting the puck. He shouldn't be trying to do quick release plays when shooting. What was that about Vlasic's stick, Alex?
Oh, what is candy cane? Tape
pattern?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that doesn't really affect that as much. Although, in general, you should know by now that Vlasic is not the sharpest shot in the league.
No.
Like,
it misses the net like
within
a huge amount of time.
Within all of our defensive options, to shoot the puck. Vlasic is the one that I would not put in charge. And I'm not sliding him on that. That is not his job.
No.
So why would a skater candy cane wrap their stick with grip tape?
Grip. Pretty much. I mean, it's a stylistic thing. To be honest with you, it's functional too, depending on how you want to hold your stick. Everyone's got different stick preferences. I tell you right now, I don't tape anywhere near that far down my stick, and I usually do a little, like a I don't even know what you call it, like a 3D candy cane bump, whatever, intercrossing. You know,
I did that too
for grip.
But so Vlasic uses his stick in amazing ways on defense because he can just grip all over the shaft, which most players don't, because they want to.
You want to be able to slide up and down.
Yeah, you want to be able to transition your hands as quickly as possible. Whereas for Vlasic, having grip and power is most important because he's always trying to, bully other people's sticks off of pucks. So he's made a choice in how he approaches his play with his equipment that makes him less effective at shooting, and that's fine.
Yeah,
you put him next to Carlson, and you don't put the way we could see Vlasic become a better defender tomorrow is if they just mailed him the trophy they should have given him 5 years ago.
Look, I mean, but that's buying into the idea that he's legitimately upset about what's going on in the organization.
Yeah,
he's legitimately upset about, how he's viewed as a defenseman, and I just don't buy it.
I think the only way you get that is by listening to Kevin Kurz.
Yeah.
No, I think Vlasic wants a Norris. I don't think it's how he's viewed. I think Vlasic wants a Norris. No, but that's the thing.
I like Chuck Norris.
And here's the thing, right? Like, if we're going to buy into the idea that he's upset, then how do we explain the fact that DeBoer keeps running him out on the power play?
Yeah.
Right? DeBoer is giving him the opportunity to get, stupid points. And the reality is it's a waste of time for everybody because Vlasic can't hit the net when he's given that opportunity. He doesn't get the points. And, this is, I'm saying this all acknowledging that, last year he hit, I think, a career high in points just because of the opportunities he was given.
But I think that's what it is. I think because the NHL is a bit of a, boys club, a bit of a, in-house, and Vlasic is wants that trophy. And I think the organization people know he wants that trophy, so they're trying to put him in position to get it. I honestly think it's they're willing to throw away power play points to help Vlasic.
Yes,
get a trophy.
DeBoer absolutely is, and again, that to me, that's evidence that the organization is doing what it is. That absolutely, but it's evidence that the organization is bending over in some sense to try to give Vlasic what he wants. And so that, in some sense, I think obviates the narrative that he is upset with his role, right? Because
I think it's his role in the league. I think it's his legacy. I don't think it's his
I don't buy any of it, to be honest. I just don't. Here's the thing: you can come up with theories like that all day. We have no idea what Vlasic's thinking.
That doesn't, and also, right? Like, if he is looking at it from that perspective, that he's upset that he hasn't gotten his due, then certainly the way he would respond is not to half-ass defensive plays.
Yeah,
it doesn't
make any.
Right? Honestly, if there's something he's upset about, and if I was him, this is what I would be upset about: it's getting stuck with the corpse of a 31-year-old defenseman who cannot get up and down the ice anymore.
Agreed.
And I could see a guy getting frustrated about that, right? When early in the season, he was given the opportunity to have an outlet, a guy he could get the puck to, who could move the puck out of the zone, because that's the modern NHL. The modern NHL is you have a defensive guy, and you have that defensive guy paired with somebody who can complement his skills, and that is Carlson. Well, I could see Vlasic being upset that he is stuck in the position, being put in the position he's put in, and let's be honest, right? We all know that plus minus is a garbage stat. It's meaningless, right? It's a group effort, right? But if I'm Vlasic and I'm looking at my minus 15, I'm infuriated because that is entirely due to the position he's being put in.
True. And the thing I really hate about our defensive pairings is, at least from my point of view, it looks like that both pairings with Carlson and Burns are set up so that on one side as a player you don't want to skate past because he'll try to level you. On the other side is a player that DeBoer wants to get the puck, and they're trying to set it up so you don't skate to Dylan, you give up the puck to Carlson instead, and Carlson gets the transition.
Right.
And because Burns and Braun and Vlasic don't fit either mold, you know, they're just like, I have to play you. I don't know what to do with you. You know, play together.
Well, that pairing is old school, 15 years out of date hockey, right? Two immobile guys who are slowing down, who are really good positionally and really good with their sticks, and guys just skate around them and toy with them, essentially, at this point. That's the reality. So no, Vlasic is not a lazy bum. And if you believe he is, first of all, stop reading Kevin Kurz. That guy has an agenda because Vlasic treats him like crap. And, you know, open your fucking eyes. Braun is not the player he used to be. That's all I have to say.
Hey, well, you know what? Speaking of opening out your eyes, we got some games this week, guys, and I think it's a good transition, and here's why. Here's why. I know, usually I'm not great with these transitions, but we talked last week about a little bit of the smoke and mirrors going on with that Sharks win streak. Not because we want to be pessimistic, but because there were a couple things going on that maybe indicated that things were not necessarily just magically turned around. And of course, that would be the case this week. The Sharks started our week. I say our with air quotes in case you can't see it, because our week is a little different from the normal week, I guess. Playing the first of back-to-back games because the NHL schedule makers just like to screw with the Sharks. The first game was against the Kings. Now, for those of you who are not aware, Kings, not a good team. Okay? Not a good team. And here's what happens in this game. The Sharks basically play from behind. Now, do they come back? Yes, they do, but they play from behind against a bad team, and they lose. First period, the Kings score a goal. Kovalchuk, who, by the way, let me tell you something. That goal, if you haven't watched it, that's one of those goals as a fan you're watching, and you can just tell that the other team is going to score a goal. You can just tell for like a full 30 seconds or so that was coming. Then there were no goals in the second period. In the third period, the Kings would score again. Then Radiel would score one to make it 2-1, and Pavs would score literally with like, I think 31 seconds left on the clock. And I'll tell you what, he ties it up, but he ties it up off of what is a really well-placed timeout, which we've talked about this again, not so much recently, but timeouts actually have a use if you know how to use them. This was an instance where DeBoer did. There was a play set up, and it worked out, and the Sharks tied it. But Kovalchuk comes back and scores in overtime. Now, again, this is not a good team. So losing against this team is not a great sign. Now, obviously, every game is its own game. But I think when you look at this, and you look at the next game, which we'll get to, you immediately had to, as a fan, look at it and go, how is this staff still here at this point? Because seriously, and I know, look, I'm ripping into the coach staff. I get it, but I, as a fan, am frustrated because I look at this roster and I'm like, how can you not have figured it out by now, or figured out something
and
that
this
would
game
be more consistent than
what this game is exactly what we've been seeing all year. The Sharks dominated possession after a really slow, really ugly first period, but they did not prevent high danger shots at all. Like they actually gave up way more scarier chances throughout this game than they actually achieved on their own. Again, like it's the same shit.
As close as the NHL is as far as parity, these two teams are not equal.
No,
they're not equal. So the game should not have played. And the other thing too, and this is the big thing between this and then, again, the next game as well. The Sharks should not have to constantly play from behind against crap teams. That is not what a good team does. It's not.
So let's call back real quick, because let's call back to our podcast at the beginning of the season.
When I called the Sharks win the Stanley Cup, I'm drinking to that right now.
Well, it's more we were laughing to the bank because we're just like, once you get your deployment right, this is the 6-2 winning team. And of course, we saw our defensive problems what they were. So we're laughing, saying, "Oh, it's going to be 8-5," but still, it's just going to be these wild,
It's only been a lot of
games.
five goal games.
Yeah, and here we are looking at a team that just our neutral zone play is actually pretty good, but either ends of the ice, we're just like, why can't we just get those tiny little changes in place? And why are we constantly, half step forward, half step back? Kate, was this the point where the game where the line settled, or was this where the blender started up again?
Oh, I honestly, this game I watched with like one eye open and one eye closed because it was exciting because of how close it was at times, but it was maddening at the same time. What this game did include was a hit from Carlson, which would get him suspended for the next 2 games, which is, again, trying not to foreshadow too much, but I think I've already.
Let's transition on that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the Sharks play the next day against the Arizona Coyotes, and I have news for you, people. If you thought Los Angeles is bad, well, Arizona's only 1 point ahead of them in the standings, and are also bad, and will always be bad, and should just freaking move already. This is the second game of the back-to-back. The Sharks lose this game again, more or less having to come from behind. They lose by a score of 4-3. Tim Heed, who had come in, scores the first goal of the game. Yeah, great goal. And then basically, Coyotes score to close the first. They score again in the second, so the Sharks are behind 2-1. Then Hurdle comes in and ties it. And then guess what? Garland scores for Phoenix, and the Sharks are down again. And then Hurdle scores again to tie it. And there are no goals in overtime, and then it comes down to a penalty shootout, and the Sharks don't win. Now, the only thing to me interesting in this game, because again, I was slamming my head on the table as far as the Sharks' second game in a row against the second worst team in the division, one of the worst teams in the NHL, is having to play from behind with this roster. Even without Carlson, it's maddening. But what really got me was Ekman Larsson lays a hit on LeBanc. And I know right now, I am saying this, if you're not a Sharks fan and you're listening to this, I don't know what you're doing, but thank you. You're probably going, well, one of your guys is taken out and you think everyone else should get a suspension. No, like freaking upward elbows LeBanc in the face.
Upward elbows.
Come on. How is that not even get anything?
He led with the elbow. He watched the target all the way through, and he watched to make sure he finished through the head.
That's because LeBanc came back in the game, so there's nothing to punish.
Make up your effing mind on whether you're going to call these hits or you're not going to call these hits, and just obviously leave it out. But this game is frustrating because when you look at this game, while possession is much more even, this is a game the Sharks could have and should have won, and they didn't. So they lose back-to-back games, having to come from behind with a tremendous effort doing so, by the way.
But Alex, they got points, so everything's fine.
But that's not okay. In fact, after this game, I want to say it was. I'm pretty sure it was after this game. It might have been after the LA game, but I remember Hedican and Jim Baker were kind of going into like a defensive rant, and Randy Hahn just pretty much goes, "Yeah, but not really, though, right? I mean, these are not good teams, and the Sharks really shouldn't be in this position."
Bless Hahn. I mean, that guy is the only one keeping it real, and as I said in our chat, I love the in-between comments he lets slip out at times when he's just sort of riffing in between, prepared statements or play calling. And like, there's a time when you just have to stop and realize how much hockey this guy has seen.
Yeah.
And just his little in-between comments are so insightful and so spot on. You're just like, damn, man, I wish they had pulled the filter off.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those moments where you're kind of looking for the Randy Drew combo to come back, because Drew would come out as homery as Drew could be. Drew also didn't have a problem admitting when the Sharks were terrible. He only really had an issue when you blame the Sharks without any sort of with basic stuff. Well, I tell you what. Let's. Do you have one more thought on this game, Colin?
Yeah, that freaking EK, the Dirt Dog EK.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 3 games at least. It is. You're leading into the head with a hit.
It was a blatant. Look, injury or not. That's a scary play. It needs to not be in the game. You need to do what you can to remove from the game. I don't care. I don't care if it was Ekman Larson doing it to LeBanc. I don't care if it was LeBanc doing it to Ekman Larson. He didn't. But if the situation was reversed, get that out of the game.
So I'm going to touch on a subject that hopefully we don't get into because it's one that'll set Ben off. To me, this is where the whole instigator penalty needs to go away, because you either have refs that do their job and enforce, like Ekman Larson should have been out of the game. Like, it should have just been like, out of the game, 5 major, have fun, Sharks. But he didn't. And now you have a bad team playing a high skill good team, knowing that they can get away with nasty shots, and they spent the game taking runs.
Were they playing a high school good team? Because the Sharks just lost 2 games in a row.
Okay. High school good players. They're playing high school good players.
I just pointed it out because that's the thing I think we're all making.
Okay, I'm saying the average dollar amount per player on the Sharks roster.
Barely above 500 team.
Yeah.
Okay.
It looks like it's not that, but then there's 7 overtime losses. They are 20 and 19 technically.
They're liars.
Not a good team.
You have a bunch of crap players on the ice with a bunch of really expensive, pretty players, knowing that they can get away, trying to break those pretty players.
Yeah.
And referees, do your job. Let them play hockey. Keep it off the streets. And I'm not saying the Sharks win this game if the refs called it properly.
No, they don't win this game.
But I'm definitely saying, in the long term, we have a better league, and we see more, fun hockey and less, quote unquote grit hockey.
Well,
let's remember, Marty McSorley skated, or Marty McSorley, what's his name, McSorley asshole, skated with Gretzky. And that wasn't because he was good when he was younger. It was because Gretzky needed somebody to keep him safe because referees weren't going to do it.
Well, let's end this podcast on a higher note, because the Sharks would have one more game this week. They played the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. The Ducks. They got rid of the Mighty. The Sharks won this game 4-2. Ben's favorite player, scores in the first period. Sharks start from behind. Silverberg scores. By the way, the way he spells his name just drives me insane. That's his parents' fault, not his. You're cool, Jacob. Also, Jacob with a K. That's me, yeah. Melvin Karlsson for the Sharks would tie it up. Then Sorensen would score in the second. Third period, Sherwood for the Ducks would score. And then Burns in a milestone game would score essentially the game-winning goal, and then hurdle with I think that was an empty netter if I recall correctly, right?
Yes.
At the end of the game. So the Sharks do win this game. And hey, here's the good news, guys. Anaheim's a slightly better team than the other teams that we played. But I had flashbacks this week, guys, of the Sharks of normal, I guess. The ones that play up and down to opponents, maybe? Like, my voice is going up and down. So, look, Sharks come out of this week. Yes, they get points in each game, but they're essentially 1-2 coming out of this.
And let's also recall in the in the Anaheim game, they switched goalies. So we didn't even beat this is the goalie keeping this team relevant.
Well, that's because that goalie's hurt.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm just saying we got the sort of golden goose gift of you're sort of neck and neck with the team. It's a high pace, grind about, lots of shooting game. Oh, and the other team has to switch their goalie, and he's coming in cold.
How funky was it to see a goaltender playing for the Anaheim Mighty Ducks wearing a St. Louis Blues mask? Threw me for a loop several times.
It's all red for me when I'm watching Anaheim. So it's all hate.
Well, guys, 3 stars of the week. Colin, why don't you go first?
So I think I'm gonna give my 3rd star to Mr. Isaac Newton, because physics have really been on our side for the last few games. I especially think the posts have been our best friends.
Certainly at the end of the Anaheim game, yes.
Oh man, no! Like, teams against us have been ringing in the new year, and as I said in the last podcast, anytime you hear a post ring on our side of the ice, just count yourself lucky. Bullet dodged. I think my 2nd star is going to. It's got to be a tie, because there are players keeping us relevant too. The 2nd star tie goes to Pavelski and Hurdle, because we should be thankful every time those guys are healthy.
That's your 2nd star.
That's my 2nd star.
Okay, interesting.
Because 1st star has to go to Logan. I think Couture. He keeps being our best player, and yeah, he's our worst attitude, but he keeps being our best player. He is our 2nd line, and yeah, he's had Hurdle there with him, which has made our 2nd line sort of redundantly good. But without Couture, we would be in even worse place than we are now. We'd have even more negative things to say, because all of our lines would be absolute trash, except now we've got the 2nd line that's just being kept together by this one guy.
Well, Ben, I'm gonna go 2nd here if you're okay with it. I'm gonna give my 3rd star to Tim Heed for basically coming in and scoring a goal.
Congratulations on your goal. Now sit in the press box.
He actually, I think if you do the math, and I haven't done the math, so I'm just guessing. Ben, you'll do the math for me later, because that's what you do. But I'm pretty sure he came in and scored a goal faster than Carlson, right? In the end, is that how? I'm just joshing, I would say. So 2nd star of the game for me. The 2nd star, for me, the 1st star is very clear. The 2nd star is where it's a little bit muddy. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to give the 2nd star to Brent Burns. Now, I would have given this a tie to Pavelski and Burns, but the reason I'm giving it to Burns is because Burns technically scores the game-winning goal on a milestone night for himself, whereas Pavs just scored the game-winning goal, or the lead goal, or the tying goal, as a superhero as he is, on a regular night. So that counts for less for no apparent reason to me. So Brent Burns is my 2nd star. My 1st star, I don't really know how you give it to anyone other than Hurdle. I mean, Colin, I think your choice is interesting, but Hurdle. Ben, you.
All right, so I'm going to do things a little bit differently. So I'm going to give so the All-Star teams were announced today. And, Carlson and Burns were selected to the All-Star team for the Sharks, which I think is
congratulations,
certainly a way you could go. Yeah, he's going to be on the penalty kill unit, coached by Peter DeBoer. So I'm going to give my 3rd and 2nd stars to 2 guys who got straight snubbed for that team. I'm going to give the 3rd star to Joe Pavelski, who's been well beyond what anybody should have expected from a guy who's like 95 years old.
Should have been a lot.
Yeah. And honestly, the all-star nonsense, give it to the older dudes. Let the older dudes.
I disagree, man. Like, give it to the guy that's actually earned it this season. Like, I know a lot of people were pulling for Thornton, and I love Thornton, and I totally understand why, and I'd love to see it as well. But he's not an all-star this year, guys.
Yeah. Well, I'd give it to Meyer myself, but everybody knows that I'm a Meyer fanboy. My 2nd star to Couture, also snubbed, the top Sharks point getter and probably the best overall forward, on the team at the moment.
Best 200-foot player, like just best player.
And my 1st star is going to be very different. So I'm going to give the 1st star to my dad, who passed away last Friday. And I'm giving him that star because he instilled in me the love of sports that has sort of taken me to this podcast. Now, he was not a hockey fan, but he loved his football. and he loved his Raiders, and they did win for him this week. But I wouldn't be the person I am today without you, Dad, and I love you, and I will miss you forever.
Hug your fathers, everybody.
Yeah, I wish we'd done that before we had done the Anaheim game, so we could end up on a higher note. No, that's very touching, Ben. And you know what? I would like to take back my first star, and I would like to give my first star instead to Joe Thornton for no reason whatsoever. I'm just kidding, guys.
Are you saying Joe Thornton is your daddy?
I mean, I'm not wearing a shirt right now, so he might be. I'm just kidding. I'm wearing a sweatshirt. Guys, that concludes our podcast. You can listen to us by subscribing to us on iTunes. You can subscribe to us on Android platforms. I know I'm not going to say it. Yes, I am. Android people, you're smart enough to find it. And you can follow us, Ben, on Twitter at Circling the Cup. You can check us out on Facebook. I got to be honest with you, people. I've been lagging on Facebook. I've just been really busy. But we're at facebook.com/Circling the Cup. That you'll at least be able to find links to the podcast. You can listen to us live. We're usually podcasting Fridays at 10 o'clock at night, West Coast time. Sometimes we're doing it on Sundays. Sometimes we're doing it whenever we feel like it. But for the most part, that's around when we're doing it. You can write us. You can check us out on the web at circlingthecup.com. But, you know, as you've seen, you write us, and it's a slow news week, and we will put it on the air.
Not even slow news week. We just like the questions.
Yeah, we do like the questions. We do like answering questions. You know why? Because as people who have watched the Sharks, and look, these are just our takes, obviously, but as people who have watched Sharks for a long time, there's a couple of different ways you can watch this sport. The superficial way, which is there's nothing wrong with whatsoever, will lead you to very different conclusions than sometimes the deeper or the more informed ways, or at least, you know, for people who have watched sport long enough to understand what it is they're seeing on a different level. So hopefully we bring you guys that extra perspective, and hopefully, you guys keep writing us because we really, really, really do appreciate it. But guys, that concludes our podcast. Say bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Love you, Dad.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not going to do my bye-bye. Well, I just did it, but that was on a technicality.
And that's where the podcast will end. All right, guys. I'll edit this and get it up.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time, Ben. And thanks for tuning in, people.
Yeah, thank you, folks.
Oh, we had people. Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, we had listeners.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to stop the broadcast now.